unboxing of the Road to Red and the Red 50th Anniversary set. So we'll start with the bigger one. We have the front cover, which shows the original back cover of the Red album, the VU meter, then the list of contents on the spine, just the writing, the Road to Red in that font. We have two different pictures on the inner and outer box. This one is a picture of the band from a promotional photo where it says 40th Anniversary Series, and then on the inner box it's just that VU meter again. So first up is the book. Very similar book to the Starless box set with accounts of each concert, but this one also has excerpts from Robert Fripp's diary as we just progress through the tour here, as well as the obligatory essay by Sid Smith, album labels, lots of pictures, etc., etc. If you've watched the other unboxings, you kind of know what to expect at this point, but I'll go ahead and quickly flip through it anyway. We don't get that many shows from the first half of the tour, but we do get almost the entire second half of the tour represented on CD, and the multi-track shows are included on Blu-ray as well, which is a nice bonus. Here we have our memorabilia envelope, which has a track sheet. On the inside we've got a little paper with the lyrics to Starless. We've got a ad for the Casino Arena, the show which the Asbury Park album, or the USA album, was made from. And then we've got this stack of set lists written on what looks to be some kind of hotel notepad or something. Mostly the same every night. I don't think it was necessary to include like 10 of these, but it's an interesting addition, I guess. And then one thing that's missing from this set is 4 postcards, which just have the portraits of each of the 3 band members that are on the front cover of Red, as well as one of David Cross, which is represented on the CDs. They're not in there because I have them as part of a display unit, so I'm not going to show you those because you already know what those pictures look like if you've seen the front cover. There's the tour dates. And then we've got 2 promotional items from Atlantic, a review of the Red album, as well as a review of the USA album. And then we've got the covers of both of those albums. So here's USA, and here's Red. Then we've got our CD wallets. So the first batch on top has the portraits from the album cover. So this is Columbus and Pittsburgh, which is 2 CDs. Houston, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma City. Most of the pictures on the back are from the USA concert, or sorry, the New York Central Park concert, the final show. So that's what David Cross's card looks like, because of course he's not on the front cover of Red. There's Bill Bruford, again, backstage photos, etc., etc. This one's El Paso, Denver, and Milwaukee. This is Grand Rapids and Toronto. We have Quebec City, Washington, Asbury Park. This is the new mix, the same that's on the vinyl in the box set that I reviewed in Chapter 2. Sorry, Chapter 3, that is. This one is Asbury Park, the 2005 mix, so this was included in the Collector's King Crimson. Penn State and Providence, Disc 1. Then we have Providence, Disc 2. Central Park, the final show. The stereo remix of Red. And then in the final set, we've got the DVD and Blu-ray discs, which include all of the multi-track shows in high resolution, as well as all of the mixes of Asbury Park, all of the mixes of Red, and some bonus content on each of the sets as well. So that is the box set. Then we have the much smaller Red 50th Anniversary Edition, which unfortunately I cannot do a proper review of, although I will talk about what I have listened to. This follows the same format as what we've seen already with Lark's Tongues. The 2 mini LP style gatefolds, so there's the alternate portraits, the same that are on the second set of CD wallets. I'll show you one of these because each of the discs has a a VU meter and then they're each at a different location. The second gatefold has track sheets, etc. Unfortunately, I can't review the whole set because I got 2 copies of Blu-ray 1 in this second wallet. I did not get Blu-ray 1 and 2, so I am missing the Atmos mix and all of the studio material that's not represented on the CDs. But here is the booklet. A lot of the same photos and ads, etc. Not much new here, but interesting. Track listing, a new essay, etc., etc. I did like this new essay because it goes in more depth about the album itself and not just all the concerts leading up to it. So that's interesting. And there's our 2 sets, which we'll be talking about in this video. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm Brandon Ware. You're watching Angel 65, my channel for all things music related, both my own music posts as well as music reviews. And today we are on Chapter 7 of the King Crimson Deep Dive, where we are reviewing The Road to Red and the material that I do have from the Red 50th Anniversary Edition. So, this is it. We have reached the end of the 70s and the demise of the initial King Crimson period. So, we'll start with some of the shows. A lot of this is represented on The Great Deceiver, most of the multi-track shows, so I'd say about half of this box set is the multi-track shows, and probably a third or so of that material is represented on the 4-CD The Great Deceiver set. So this one has less stuff that's unique to the set. I would recommend this as a little bit less essential than Starless, and if I'm being completely honest, I also found most of the performances and certainly the sound quality, which came from cassettes for the non-multi-track shows, to be of inferior quality to Starless, so I enjoyed this box set quite a bit less. However, it's still an interesting overview of their final U.S. tour. Before David crosses out, they record Red, and the band is over by the end of 1974. So, of the cassette soundboard shows, some of the interesting ones were probably Milwaukee was okay, Hofheinz Pavilion in Houston was okay, Fort Worth was okay, Oklahoma City was pretty good, Quebec City was okay. Most of the other ones are of inferior quality, I would say, compared to what you get on Starless, particularly the Denver show, which is a bit of a shame because I am from Denver, so I would have hoped that that would have been a cooler show, similar to the Summit Studio show on the Earthbound DVD, which I thought was really cool. This one is very poor quality. They opened for ZZ Top, which has got to be the most odd double bill I've ever heard of. And apparently the audience was not vibing with it, and neither was the promoter. So midway through the talking drum, the promoter turned the power off, and that was it. So we get an incomplete set, and I guess Denver just was not ready for King Crimson, or more likely, people that were going to see ZZ Top were not there for a band like King Crimson, which is basically as far in the opposite direction of rock as you can go from a very blues-based band like ZZ Top. No disrespect to them. ZZ Top is a really cool band, but I just don't think there's a lot of overlap between their fan base and the King Crimson fan base. So overall, the board shows are not of outstanding quality, and most of the performances are kind of rough. They don't sound as together, and it doesn't sound like they have as much time for the improvs as they did on the European dates, so a lot less in depth. The multi-track shows, however, all of the stuff that was on The Great Deceiver is now complete, so it's nice to have all of that on CD and complete version, as well as on the Blu-ray. According to the Tale of the Tapes, all of the CD versions are assembled from the same digital masters that were made for The Great Deceiver. The versions on the Blu-ray, which are sampled in 192 kilohertz high res, were done from tapes, because I guess everything when The Great Deceiver was mixed back in the early 90s was done on tape and digitally, so they actually went back to the tape version so that they could sample it in high res, which David Singleton says was quite the endeavor because he had to go through all of the rough mixes of each section and composite them back together in the right order. So they're more accurate to the way the shows were done, but it was a time-consuming process. Is there that much difference? I mean, the high-res versions sound better to me. They definitely sound brighter and more wide soundstage, which again David Singleton notes in the tail of the tapes, but I wouldn't say they're that much different than the CD version. So if you have the Great Deceiver and that sounds good to you and you're not interested in hearing every track from every show that's included there, as well as all these board bootlegs, then I'd say you're set. I don't think you need this. It's not as essential to me and doesn't tell as much of a story as the Starless box set does. However, the one exception here is the Central Park show, which is a audience bootleg. That is not a board recording or a multi-track. It's a very good quality audience bootleg, and it is certainly worth hearing because it's the final show that the band played, the final performance with David Cross, as well as, well, the final performance of the 70s before King Crimson called it quits. And it is a good show. Robert said that that was the best show they had played since the '69 lineup. Perhaps it would be easier to make that judgment for myself if it were in higher sound quality, but it is a great show, and it is a good note to end on. I mean, they're definitely performing tight by that point. I would say the last run of shows, 3 of which are represented on the Blu-ray, are really the essential point of the box set. So because the Asbury Park show, which is USA, Penn State, Providence, the entire Providence show is already included on the Great Deceiver, so that is a repeat on this set. And then the final show in Central Park. Those last 4 shows are really showing the band at its best. They're the tightest, and the improvs are really cool. I mean, particularly on Asbury Park, you get the Asbury Park improv, the full thing, not the edited version that was on the original USA album. And then from Providence, you get the Providence improv, which is on Red, but again, the full version, and A Voyage to the Center of the Cosmos, which you get a really cool 5.1 mix of as well on the Blu-ray. That same 5.1 mix is included on the 40th anniversary Red CD DVD edition, and all of the mixes of Asbury Park are included on that CD DVD 40th anniversary. So if you have that, the USA, the Red 40th anniversary standalone editions, and the Great Deceiver, then you get most of the highlights from this box set. You really have to be a die-hard fan and be really keen on having those high-res versions of the multi-track shows for this to be a worthwhile purchase. That said, it was an enjoyable experience. I did enjoy going through this. I really enjoyed the multi-track shows, which I listened to this weekend, as well as the Red 5.1 mix, which is fantastic. The Red 5.1 mix really already has quite a big atmospheric quality to it. And I think because it is a drier album, it doesn't necessarily envelop you as much. There's not as much detail there, except perhaps on Starless, where there's a lot of overdubs from the horns and whatnot. But the fact that there's less instrumentation means you can kind of spread it out more and really put yourself in the center of the sound, which is what Steven Wilson did. So really cool 5.1 mix. I just finished listening to that. You also get a 5.1 mix of the trio version of Fallen Angel, so just bass, drums, and guitar. It takes away the horns and vocals. In stereo, you get a Red trio version, which is, again, just guitar, bass, and drums. Takes away the string bass in the middle and some of the additional overdubs. I wouldn't say that Red trio version is essential, but the Fallen Angel one is really cool. I liked that a lot. So the buying points of this box set are certainly, for me, the 2 Blu-rays, as well as the Central Park show, which was available as a download, but I had not heard it. This was the first time I had heard it, was when I first purchased this box set. So to hear that final string of concerts and leading up to Red, and then, of course, the Red album itself, that's really where you hear the band at its tightest, and does kind of make you feel sad that it did end, especially hearing the Red album and hearing Starless with Ian McDonald and Mel Collins both playing on it. It makes you wonder what could have been. There was talk of Ian McDonald joining permanently before Robert decided, nope, I've had enough of this. We're gonna break up the band. Perhaps a 5-man King Crimson with the 3 members on Red plus Mel Collins and Ian McDonald. Had that gone into the future, that could have been the definitive King Crimson lineup. They could have made some great stuff together. Robert might have had a good writing partner again in Ian McDonald, whose contributions to the first album are really what make the first album, in my opinion. So to hear him back in the fold doing some solos is really cool, and it is true that those two players are much more accomplished at their instruments and better soloists than David Cross was. However, David Cross was still a really cool addition to the band, and I like that they include Providence on Red because for the first half of that improv, the violin is really the dominating instrument, so you do get to hear David Cross do something really cool on his violin, and then, of course, it kind of switches directions midway through when the bass and drums really take over, but yeah, just unfortunate that, unfortunately, the band ended at this point, but you have to give them props for quitting while they were on top. I mean, Red really is the standout achievement of the decade. As I said in the previous video, Starless and Bible Black is my favorite of the 70s. I like it even more than the first album, In the Court, to be honest, but Red is really, like, the standout achievement. The back of the box says it was probably of even greater influence to future musicians than In the Court was, and that's probably true. I mean, the title track, you've got just balls to the wall, heavy metal, and it crushes. It's amazing, totally aggressive. I love that opening track. Fallen Angel, really cool ballad. Again, I love the horn overdubs on it, and Wetton's voice is really cool on it. It's got a very dark tonality to it, but you can tell he's grown in confidence a lot as a singer, and probably delivers his best vocal performances on this album. One More Red Nightmare is just fantastic. I mean, the drums alone, that drum track, as well as perhaps Heart of the Sunrise by Yes, like, those are the two tracks that's like, this is why you should listen to Bill Bruford. This is why Bill Bruford is one of the greatest drummers of all time, because his ability to play to the song and yet add unexpected things that change the vibe and really draw attention to the drums without ruining the song and stepping over what everyone else does. That is what makes him such a great drummer. Of course, he further elaborates on that technique in the 80s, much less aggressive way, but yeah, you really get to hear some of the things that make this lineup tick and just make them fantastic. It's a shame that they broke up after this. Starless is probably the highlight of the album, though. The live versions are really cool. I really like how aggressive it is live when they get to the end of it, but the studio version, I think, is the definitive version with the horn overdubs with Mel Collins and Ian McDonald on it. It's just fantastic. Wetton's voice is really great during the opening section, and the build-up section is great too. Just the sound quality of it, the aggressiveness of it. It's a fantastic track and a good way to end after 5 years of just genre-busting, crazy rock music where they really took it in so many different directions. On this one track, Starless, you kind of get a conglomerate of everything that came before, and it just ties it up nicely, and it is a good one to end on. So moving on to the 50th anniversary edition, I must say I was really excited for this, even though there's a lot of repeated content, and I'm really bummed that I can't do a proper review of this. I was really excited to hear this Atmos mix after being so impressed with the Lark's Tongues Atmos mix, but wasn't there. I was on the receiving end of a packaging error, so unfortunately I'm going to have to send it back and wait for a new copy, which hopefully has the right discs in it. Most of the studio material that is on the Blu-ray 2 is represented elsewhere. You get the original master already in high-res on Road to Red, same exact remaster, 30th anniversary edition, so not new. You get the instrumental mixes. Those are represented on the first CD. Providence, the complete track, represented on the CD and on the Road to Red box set. And then you get probably the most interesting thing is the elemental mixes. I actually enjoyed these a lot more than the Lark's Tongues and Aspic elemental mixes. I thought you actually do get a proper alternate version of the album where it's not just stuff is spaced out and you're hearing things that are a bit jarring. It's actually like this could have been an alternate mix of the album that would have been successful. Of those tracks, Fallen Angel is probably the most interesting. The way they take the drums out and really strip it back, you get to hear the essence of that track without some of the grandeur that it later had, but it could have worked that way too. And then also on CD 2 you get the making of Starless, which is fascinating. That was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot, to hear some of the different sections of Starless. So it's broken down into 6 sections. You get just the mellotron from the opening section, just the mellotron by itself. You can really hear how wide and atmospheric the mellotron is. You get a bunch of the saxophone overdubs. Some of them were used on the final mix, some of them were not. a basic take, which is just a run through the track with bass, the mellotron at the beginning, and then the guitar build up and drums, so missing all of the horn overdubs and some of the atmospheric elements. More sax solos, the percussion section, and then cornet and guitar solos, and then the last part of it is just some extra cornet takes. What's missing that I have not had the chance to review yet is, of course, the Atmos mix and 3 more Red Nightmares. Looks like we get early guide vocal section, saxophone overdub, bass and drums, so it's unfortunate that that's not there. I was really looking forward to hearing that. And then something called Think Again Fragment. It says mastered by Alex Armundi from a John Wetton 1/4-inch file tape. Apparently a new piece or something that didn't end up getting used. So wish I could tell you what that is, but I don't know because I haven't heard it thanks to a missing disc. When I do receive my new copy, I will probably just re-edit this video and repost it. I don't see the point in making a brand new video if I'm going to talk about everything else that I have heard now. So the other Blu-ray, you get the 3 Asbury Park mixes. I didn't bother listening to them again because they're exactly what's represented on the Road to Red, so no point triple dipping there. And then we get 5 multi-track shows, 5 bootleg recordings from the US show, which are not represented in the Road to Red, all of very poor sound quality. You can hear people talking, really poor quality board bootlegs. There are some good performances here. Of the set, I would probably say the Hollywood Sportatorium was the highest quality performance, but again, all 5 shows are really poor quality, so definitely not essential. As a completionist and someone who really wants to hear everything that's available, it's nice to have them all on disc without having to go download them from DGM Live, so that was cool, but I don't see myself going back to them. And then you get a slightly higher res version of the US Central Park final show as well. I didn't bother listening to that because I didn't think it would be that much of an improvement over the CD. The CD sounds pretty good. It's a fairly high quality audience recording, but I really didn't want to listen to it again, so I didn't. Can't tell you if it actually improved over the CD or not. I highly doubt that it did. So Blu-ray 1 is largely useless to me because I don't see myself going back to those bootleg recordings, and all of the versions of Red all of the versions of USA are included on the Road to Red box set. The newest mix, the 2013 mix, is included on vinyl in the 72 to 74 box set. So when I'm listening to USA, that's the copy that I'm going to opt for because to me that sounded really great. No point listening to it in high-res digital because they probably used this high-res digital transfer to make that LP in the first place. I do like that you get the mixes because I certainly prefer them to the original version. I never liked the original mix, and I will admit I was very upset when I first heard it that they replaced David Cross with Eddie Jobson. I think it was an insult to David Cross. I really do. I think it's despicable that they did that. I have nothing against Eddie Jobson, but the fact that they edited David Cross out of the album on some segments after he had been kind of brutally fired from the band is, to me, very disgraceful. I thought that was just so disrespectful to him because while it's true that perhaps he's not the greatest violinist in the world and he did lack confidence in some places and he didn't contribute to the overall sound and aggression of the group as much as Wetton, Fripp, and Bruford did, he was still a really cool part of it, and I think it is sad that he had to go. Apparently he had decided to leave on his own anyway before he got notice that he was fired, and the book in The Road to Red tells the story of the circumstance around which he was fired, which was really messed up, but you know, it is what it is, and that lineup did have to come to an end, so that's the end of the story. The album itself, well, Red is a 5 out of 5 album. Of course it is. It's one of the most influential prog metal, jazz metal albums ever made. I mean, it's maybe the definitive King Crimson record of the period. I prefer Starless and Bible Black, but Red is still a fine album. Great album. I mean, you can definitely hear the influence that it's had on many bands that have come after it, such as Rush, Dream Theater, what's the other one? Tool, which they toured with King Crimson in the early 2000s. I mean, you can hear how those bands were influenced by that album. That album really was ahead of its time. So again, good that they quit while they were ahead. Road to Red, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 just because there's not as much unique and interesting material as Starless, but having those multi-track shows in high resolution is really great. That's a Blu-ray disc I see myself going back to quite a bit without having to pull out the CDs. It's nice to have those 4 complete shows in high resolution. Particularly Providence and Penn State are really good shows, and then you get Asbury Park on that second disc as well. This one, well, I'm not going to give it a rating yet because I haven't heard everything. Based on the studio material, I actually enjoyed the elemental mixes in the making of Starless, so I'd give that like a solid 4 out of 5. New stereo mix, I don't see the point. It didn't really make that much of a difference to the 2013 mix or to the original mix. Honestly, the original mix was already outstanding. They really didn't need to remix that one at all. It already sounded great. It's probably the best sounding King Crimson record of the 70s, so I don't see why they remixed it again. It is getting a little bit old, this. Every 10 years we're going to make a new mix of the album. There's no point in that. Steven Wilson has said of some of his other remixes and box sets by Yes and whatnot that have come out that he's learned a lot in his time since he first started doing this like 15 years ago, so he wanted to go back and kind of fix some things and make it closer to the original. I don't see the point. I think that the 2013 mix is already great. If I'm listening to Red in stereo, I'm listening to the 2013 mix on vinyl, which is in that box set that I reviewed 4 episodes ago. Don't see the point in having an additional stereo mix. The Atmos mix, I'm really excited for. The 5.1 mix was already great, so I would love to see how the Atmos improves it, but I won't know till I get that disc. So, this is being shipped back. I should get my new copy by the 18th or so. I might listen to it and add an addendum there, or I might wait till I finish everything else by King Crimson, go all the way up to the current lineup, and then listen to it, because I will admit, after 3 weeks of listening to nothing but the Wetton, Cross, Fripp, and Bruford lineup, I've had enough. It's been a fascinating journey to hear the progression of that band over 2 years, leading up to Red, which is really their crowning achievement, but I've had enough. I'm very, very excited to move on to the 80s period, and as planned, Atmos mix missing aside, I have arrived at the 80s period right during the week, which I am going to see Beat, which I am seeing on the 6th, Wednesday of the week that I am making this video, and I cannot wait. I am so excited for this show. I have not been this excited for a show in probably 2 to 3 years. This is the most exciting show that I have been waiting for. Like I said in previous videos, the day it was announced, I bought my tickets, so I am ready to listen to those 3 80s albums, as well as some of that live material, and just prep myself for that show, which I am so looking forward to. So, next video you should see from me will be a review of On and Off the Road, and I will definitely talk about that show as well after I've seen it. We've made it to the end of 70s King Crimson. Overall, fascinating journey. Really cool deep dive. I would say, at the end of all this, if you don't want to spend a lot of money on these big box sets, but you do want to still get a feel for the period that you don't get just by buying the studio albums, then I would recommend the following. Buy the Lark's Tongues 50th anniversary set, buy the Red USA and Starless and Bible Black 40th anniversary sets, and then buy the Night Watch and the Great Deceiver, which is available as 2 separate 2 CD volumes. Those are all still available for reasonable prices. You could probably get all of those items for less than $200. However, if you are a diehard fan and don't have these, of course they come recommended, but of the sets that I reviewed so far, Starless is certainly the one that I was most excited and impressed by. Road to Red, great too, if you want to hear the Road to Red, all of the shows leading up to the end of that lineup. Alright, that's all for now. Let me know your thoughts below. Do you have either of these sets? If you did get your 50th anniversary set in the mail and it had everything it was supposed to have in it, tell me what you think of that Atmos mix. I am certainly excited to check it out. I believe it'll probably be the go-to version of the album once I do have it. If it matches the quality of the Lark's Tongues Atmos mix, which I'm sure it will, because Steven Wilson is great at what he does. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and if you've been going on this journey with me, thanks. I'll be back in a week with the 80s. Goodbye.